You're not getting any younger, so
do whatever you want to do. Literally, nothing else matters.
Hey you! Yes, you. Welcome to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast, a podcast for people who want to disrupt their lives for a good reason, to make it count. I'm your host, Jen Glantz, and every week I'll drop a new episode with stories from real people just like you, who woke up one morning and decided to make big changes, starting with small things. We'll cover topics like entrepreneurship, love, failure, and self-care. Hey, you're not getting any younger, so let's make this an adventure. Ready? When I was younger, people used to ask, "Hey Jen, what do you want to be when you grow up?" But then I turned 30 and they kind of stopped. I think because they figure by 30, you're supposed to be grown up. Yeah, right. The truth is, we all know exactly what we want to be when we grow up. We're just too scared to admit it, too frightened to say it out loud. But know this, your dream job won't be easy. Everything in this world that we love brings us some form of chaos. And the truth is, if you're not waking up in the morning working toward your dream career, someone else is instead. Which is why you just need to start. Meet Emily Kopp, a Nashville-based artist known for her bluesy heartache vocals and pop songwriting smarts. Her hook-driven, authentic songs have led to placements in advertisements for JetBlue, Fitbit, Honey Bunches of Oats, and others. She has shared the stage with Matchbox 20, Brandi Carlile, Rachel Platten, Kenny Loggins, and performed on countless national festival stages. She's proven that through tenacity and creativity, one can carve out a space uniquely in their own career that's fueled by passion. Welcome to the show, Emily.
Yeah, how are you?
Awesome. How are you?
I am doing well.
So a big part of prepping for these podcasts is researching your guests, but researching you was probably the most fun because I got to listen to your music for hours. There was actually a point last night when my boyfriend was like, "Are you going to confess to Emily how many videos you watched of her?" And I will. Yes, I watched 18 videos of yours.
What? I didn't even know. My YouTube game isn't even that strong, so I'm like honored.
Oh, it
That's
is.
awesome.
With your covers and everything, I watched videos for the song Hold Your Head Up, Friend Like You, Chasing Streetlights. I watched your Adele cover on repeat until 11:30 p.m. last night. Pretty stalkerish, but my first real question for you is, please tell us what is going through your head when you're performing?
I mean, it depends the gig. If it's something that I'm really stoked to be a part of, which hopefully is always the case, there's really nothing going through your head. You're like just so concerned about being entertaining and being in the moment. In the past, there have been gigs where you're like what you're doing is on autopilot. And so you're probably sometimes thinking about like your mind is wandering about like what you're going to eat for breakfast the next day or something like that. But that's not the goal. Like the goal is to never be thinking about what you're going to eat for breakfast the next day. But usually I'm just thinking about putting on a good show and being entertaining.
After all this time, do you still find yourself nervous when you perform?
Now I am. I wasn't feeling nervous 2 years ago when I was touring a ton, basically full time. And I kind of stopped getting nervous, which is why I took a break from touring. And now I'm finally, and I had to like scare myself again. So, and I've been writing for the past 2 years full time and playing less. So now I'm scared again, which is the best feeling.
What do you think made you stop getting scared a couple years ago when you were touring full time?
I think what happens, and especially when you're at this level of like the non-tour bus level, but you're still like you're in a van and you're with a bunch of dudes and you have a trailer and you're just going from city to city and the whole you're literally just trying to stay afloat and keep your business alive but still have to be on every night. I think the the day-to-day of it can really quickly and easily beat you down a little bit to a point where you kind of you're desensitized to being nervous because you're playing so much. I think comfort is what makes you stop getting nervous. And so I think that was the issue. You're just kind of doing it becomes your job, and then you become so comfortable, and that's like the danger zone.
I totally can relate to that. I personally don't get nervous sometimes when I do things I love anymore, and that scares the living hell out of me because I think to myself, do you even want to do this anymore? And sometimes you have to reset yourself to go back to that state of mind where it freaks you out. And maybe that means you have to learn a new instrument, or maybe that means you have to take a really long break. So I can totally relate to that. But I've seen you perform live and I've watched a ton of your videos. But one of the reasons why I think it's so easy to watch you is that you look, and I say this in the best way possible, but when you perform, you look like you have this invisible passion pixie dust spewing out of your pores. I mean, watching you live is like watching a person who is doing exactly what they should be doing. When did you realize that this was what you had to do with your life?
I don't know that there was a defining moment. It was sort of a slow grow of a period of just me having to come to terms with the fact that I wasn't going to please everyone around me. I wasn't going to please family expectations or whatever that may be. I think it was towards the end of college where that transition really started. And it was rather than one moment of me saying like, yes, this is what I'm doing. It was more so it was like baby steps and little decisions I would make that would bring me closer to finally committing to it. So it was saying, yeah, I'm going to leave class on Thursday and book a little tour, weekend warrior tour, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I'll come back to Florida, on Sunday and be in class on Monday, and having to like answer questions from like my mom, for example, like, what do you mean you're going to Atlanta? Who's going to come see you play in Charlotte? Like, what are you doing? Why aren't you, at school studying? So it was this little and kind of going against the grain that brought me closer to that realization. But I don't think it was one defining moment.
You say you gave up trying to please people. Were there people trying to stop you, or was it mostly people who just didn't understand what you were trying to do?
I think hindsight's 20/20. So in hindsight, I don't think there were actually anybody trying to stop me. I think it was my own insecurities. I mean, I came from a very kind of conventional, middle class South Florida community. I went to a private Jewish school. I mean, I know the spiel. Like everybody kind of the expectation is you go to college, of course. A lot of my friends went to grad school, and a lot of people I know either go to law school or med school and kind of embark on these like quote unquote professional conventional routes. So I think it was my own inner dialogue kind of giving me that insecurity. But in hindsight, no, there was nobody really. I mean, my grandma and my mom and my stepdad like would drive to Orlando to come see my shows. So it was like the proof is in the like they showed up. When it mattered, people showed up. I think I just had to battle my own insecurities of friends getting quote unquote real jobs after college and me not doing that. It felt really strange. But now I realize it's definitely worth it.
I feel you. I was a poetry major. I always knew I wanted to be a writer, and I guess I sort of made that excuse too, that people were going to judge me and be like, you're not going to be an accountant, you're not going to go to grad school, you're going to write. But I think it's such an inner voice. It's like, oh shit, Emily, like you're doing this and you're making this work. And I think that, probably scared you like crazy. What did you major in college, by the way?
I went to Rosen at UCF. And so I majored in event and hospitality management, and I started a minor in music, but I ended up dropping it because more classes were just taking time away from me actually playing music and going and trying to get gigs. So yeah, I honestly initially I picked a major that I thought would allow me to work in music business one day, because that was my plan. I didn't think anyone actually succeeded in music unless you were like Beyonce or something. I didn't have any context.
When you were in college, what sort of steps did you start to do to make this music thing real for yourself?
So my first internship was my freshman year, and I got an internship at the arena on campus, working for the event manager there. So I was the events and operations intern, which was kind of my first real exposure to how a live concert runs. And still at the time, like I was walking around the arena with like a pencil skirt and like a button down shirt and a name tag. And I was like I was an intern. Like I was walking around trying to be like super professional and in charge of people. And so I still wasn't on the music side of it at all. I was like thinking that like the corporate route. And then my next internship was at a theater called the Plaza Live, which was near downtown Orlando. And that was my real first taste of like the true music business. And so I worked for the talent buyer, who's basically the person at a music venue who books all the shows. So I was learning about contracts and negotiating with agents and how to run a show and the hospitality that goes around, you know, that revolves around the artist on show day, and how to manage a venue. So I was seeing this like middle class artist that plays theaters that I didn't know existed before. That was my first interest. So those were the first two major steps I think I took, without really realizing that they were bringing me closer to actually becoming a musician and an artist. At the time, I was just thinking I was going to be in the music business, though.
Did anything switch in your brain to tell you, okay, Emily, start writing that first album, start releasing it, start touring, start booking gigs? Did anything from these internships start to give you a different internal monologue?
Yeah, I mean, I remember, so there's a songwriter named Joshua Radin, and I remember he played at the Plaza Theater, and I was his hospitality runner, which means I did this for like all the artists. I basically fetched, you know, their water, their M&M, their dinner, whatever they needed. I drove their tour bus drivers to the hotel so they could sleep. That was like my gig. So I remember watching his show and thinking like, okay, here's this young guy who's a really, really amazing songwriter. He's packing out this theater, and this is the dream. Like I would way rather be doing this than playing an arena and it was my first thing of seeing someone on stage that I could relate to. And it was people like him, like Grace Potter came before she like really blew up. The Civil Wars played there. And then I ended up starting to like open for people. I had like 2 original songs and a few cover songs. And so my boss would put me on any show he possibly could. So I would work during the day, kind of helping backstage. And then when it was time for the show, I would go on stage and open the show. So, yeah, that's kind of what gave me that like little nudge.
How did you feel when you would step on stage and open for some of these people who had big names or who were well known?
Oh, at the time, I mean, I was pretty immature mentally at the time, as far as I loved playing music. I also really enjoyed the attention, I think. Mm-hmm. Mature me now, I'm a little more, my goals have definitely changed, but no, my mind was being blown. Like I loved that I was able to entertain people. I loved that people were willing to listen to what I had to say, even though in hindsight, I'm like, wow, what I had to say wasn't that profound, but it was really cool. I liked that my ignorance at the time of how maybe not like underdeveloped as an artist I was. I appreciate now how my ignorance to that at the time is what made me go do it. It's like I was so not self-aware about how young of an artist I was that I was like, well, screw it. I'm just going to go do it because I thought I was the shit, you know? So you go do whatever when you have no inhibitions. So I was pumped. Yeah, I was super pumped.
You know what? I think in a way that's the best mindset to have because you don't doubt
Yeah.
You don't doubt yourself and you're not smart enough to know the consequences. Like I doubt it went through your head like, Emily, you get up there and you bomb, like this could be over for you. Like you probably thought, I'm going to go up there, do the best show in the world and be famous tomorrow. And that's probably what got you through that.
Yeah, and I don't know that I had like huge fame pipe dreams like that. I totally wanted it because I still have this kind of logical brain of you know, coming from such like a businessy upbringing of like, okay, like see if you can make this manageable, like see if you could one day play theaters or large clubs. Like, this would be a great place to be, because even that is a huge feat. But yeah, 100%, you're definitely right on the money with that, of that ignorance. And I think whether you're a writer or you're a chef or you're a poet or you're a baker, whatever it is, it's always, and it's the perfect time to do it because no one's actually watching you. Like, you're nobody's really paying attention. So if you're gonna go and try things and mess up and release music or release blogs or cook things that might not be your best self, it's like that Ira Glass thing. You're just trying to close the gap of, and then suddenly you become self-aware about how not amazing you are. And then that's when the frustration starts to like seep in, and you're trying to constantly get better and better and better because you're then so self-aware about how not there you are. But that beginning phase is like magical. Yeah.
This is exactly what I don't think people realize about a career, is that you don't wake up in the morning and you become really great. You have to go through all that dirty work. Like, when I started writing and I wrote my blog, nobody read it for a good year, but that's when I kept throwing things out and getting better and trying, so that eventually when I could write a book, I would be a little bit better at doing that. So you're exactly right. You have to get up there, you have to try it, you have to get frustrated with your own self in order to, become good, and also go through the motions of understanding what the process is like.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure people don't realize that when anybody starts, you were probably just on a laptop somewhere writing and throwing things out there that you believed in. But suddenly when things start to get hype around them and start to get attention, I think the impression is that, oh, this happened overnight, but it really didn't. It's like people were not listening for a very long time. And that allowed you to get better at what you do. And then people started listening. And so, yeah, I think it's a long journey. It can be from the outside. I think the impression can be that these things happen overnight, but they definitely don't. They definitely don't.
Sure.
It's a lot of alone time.
And enjoy
for
it.
Sure.
Enjoy that silence. Enjoy not having an audience, because that's the moment when you go through this amazing radical self-growth. And I just hope people understand that. But by the time you graduated from the University of Central Florida, you had a self-released album, you had gone on tour. What was your game plan right when you walked off the stage of graduation to do next?
So my parents basically told me, they're like, we will help you with your cell phone bill. We will help you with your car insurance. We will help you for a year. You have a year to get it together. And so that was kind of what really added fuel to the fire, because not only did I have my own pressure on top of myself to get things done and make things happen, quote unquote, whatever that meant. There was no definition of that. But, I was like, okay, man, I really have to keep this afloat, in a year from now. So, and I actually had a job offer at a music venue to work for one of the talent buyers as a talent buyer assistant. And I was going to be in charge of one of the theaters, because there were 3 different theaters in the space, and it was in Tampa. And I turned it down to pursue my own music career.
Was that a really scary moment?
It was terrifying, because think about, this, and I'm sure everybody who, is in their 20s or 30s can think back to being that age where you're graduating from college. Your friends are getting quote unquote real jobs with health insurance, and they're buying they're accumulating things for the first time, which seems really exciting, right?
So your friends were graduating college, getting all these shiny things. What did you think was going to happen?
I mean, my dream was to really just be making money playing music at the time in any capacity. So I tried to take the steps to be able to do that and ignore all the other voices and all the other outside things that said, you're a loser, you shouldn't be doing this, musicians don't make money. My inner dialogue kind of revolved around money, because that's what you think about when your friends have great jobs and you're pursuing this off the beaten path sort of thing, and you're not really viewed as an entrepreneur. You're viewed as a musician. That's a little strange, and that's a little bit risky. But I just had to really view myself as a creative person who also is an entrepreneur and who's going to make this work, and just block everything out, including my own insecurities.
So how did you silence that inner monologue? What steps did you take to go out there and make money for music? Did you go on tour? Did you release another album? How did you in that year prove yourself wrong and make this work?
Totally. So I basically said yes to everything. And I was not too good for anything. So I still was working at the venue as much as I needed to. And I was learning a ton doing that. And I was still able to be around music, which was great, and learn so much. And I surrounded myself with it in any way, shape, or form. So I made like resumes and like mix CDs, and I would go around Orlando and try to find places that would hire me for cover gigs. So I would play 3 or 4 hours, a day, 3 or 4, sometimes 5 days a week, playing, around Lake Eola, which is a lake in downtown Orlando. I know a lot of people don't have, like, I'm speaking like nobody has context for what Lake Eola is, but different restaurants around the area. So I would play World of Beer. I would play a spot called Maxine's, which is, this like little trendy brunch spot in Orlando. So I would play anywhere and everywhere I could and throw in originals. And then I would start to bring my bandmates with me and get used to playing with them. And then I would basically use that money to support myself and any extra to be able to go play actual original shows, like driving to Atlanta and go playing a show. So yeah, I grinded it out and played as much as I could. And then my days were free to write music, to book shows that were actual original shows. And then, my nights and occasional brunches, were only occupied by 3 or 4 hours. So I saw that as the most efficient way to still do music and then free up the rest of my time to dedicate towards my actual pursuits. So the cover gig thing was sort of like the side hustle that I envisioned being able to pivot into not having to do that anymore.
A lot of people graduate college. They have their 1 9-to-5 job. They have a life. Seems like you did a lot of what I did, which is graduate from college and hustle very, very hard. Not have an end goal look like it's near. Were you happy during this time?
Incredibly happy. Incredibly happy because at the end of the day, if your pursuit, and I think the pursuit, and I don't know if you feel this way too, Jen, but it's also like the pursuit that is the addiction, and that is like the most satisfying thing. So, which can also be our worst enemy because you're always like seeking something. But it's of course it's this romantic idea. Like you're on the road, you're traveling, you're like getting close to your bandmates, and there's this camaraderie that exists. You're all like kind of like grinding it out and struggling, and you don't like, I didn't care to go to brunch, with friends every Sunday. I didn't care to do those others. I saw those as things that would get in the way. And I was doing what I enjoyed, and I was happy because my happiness didn't really rely on like anything external. It was amazing. I mean, don't get me wrong. I cried a lot and I felt insecure 90% of the time, but I was really happy. Like and I think so long as you're in pursuit of something that you're really excited about, the external things of like not being able to lease a new car and not being able to afford brunch or not being able to go on a cruise with, a group of friends and not being able to do those things, it doesn't really matter because you figure out how to spend your time in a really quality way. It doesn't mean you still can't be with people. It doesn't mean you still can't hang out with your friends and have memorable moments. It's just your path looks a little bit different. So as long as your happiness doesn't rely on those external factors, and like you're gold. Like it was amazing, of course.
And on the outside, everyone will look at your life like it is one big chaotic mess. But to you, it's the reason you get out of bed in the morning. I feel that too. I feel like my happiest times are when things are sort of all over the place and I'm hustling and I'm not sure how this is going to turn out. And some of my least happy times are when the project's over, when the book is in bookstores, when something's come to an end. You feel like that too? Like when a tour is done or an album's released, are you just like, oh my God, what's next? Or do you enjoy it?
No, I agree with you completely. because you're just so addicted, not you specifically, but maybe you, but us,
Yes.
we,
Yes. Put me in that group.
are, okay. Yeah, it's the chase. Like, it's the chase that's so exciting because it's the idea of the possibilities that can come along with that, and this pride that comes with everything that you do, and the collaboration and the pride with any collaboration that it's like, and the people you meet along the way who are also on the same wavelength as you and who are also doing similar things as you. There's this like communal pride that exists, and this where you're like, oh, there are other people like me. And when that starts to happen, that's really exciting too. And that can be just so life-giving. And yeah, once an album is released, or I'm sure like once a book is released, it's like, it's the most anticlimactic thing. It's like, okay, it's here now what? So yeah, definitely. I definitely get that. It's when you're chasing that you're most excited and happy, for sure.
I think one thing that's hard for people too is that to make money, sometimes you have to spend money. And I'm guessing that you had to invest in yourself, whether it was to put money behind making videos, to go on tour, production costs. How did you decide to put money behind your passion? Because I'm sure that must have been hard, especially graduating college, not having a lot of money saved in the bank.
Yeah. So, I mean, some of those decisions, I mean, my mom's been a banker for 25 years. So I was definitely, I've always kind of tried to be as aware as I can about finances and make smart decisions. And a lot of the decisions you make when you're trying to start something and you're an entrepreneur don't seem like the most logical decisions to an outsider's perspective. Like I sold my perfectly fine 2006 Scion and bought some Beater, this conversion Ford van to tour in. And I ended up putting so much money into it because it broke down so much, but it was a vital lesson. And at the time that was the necessary decision I had to make because I wanted to play more shows. We couldn't fit in my car. And so I had to buy a van. Like there was no other solution. And through that, now I know a lot about cars because I had to deal with like being broken down on the side of the road so many times and having to change tires and know what a catalytic converter is. So there's so many lessons through that too. And it forces you to like keep your morale up. But yeah, I mean, you definitely have to spend money, and you can't be, the thing about that is you can't be short-sighted. So you can't be short-sighted and say, okay, well, I don't have money, for like a really cool girls trip this year because I just spent all my money on this record. But it's an investment in what you're building. And as long as those decisions are coming from the right place because there can definitely be silly decisions along the way. And I've definitely made silly financial decisions and invested in the wrong things. But that's part of the journey and you'll learn it. And I think it's just realizing that in this sort of thing, when you're trying to get something off the ground that you really believe in, you really can't be short-sighted about. Like money is just money. And I hate and I love that. It's a weird thing to say. Money is just money because it's important and you need it to live and eat and survive. But it's going to go and it's going to come and it's going to be all right. So yeah, I think it's important to invest in the things that are vital to what you're trying to build.
So after that year, I'm guessing you didn't give everything up and go work a 9-to-5 job. You kept things going. You released more albums. You kept going on tour. You teamed up with a friend of yours to start Midnight Riot. What was the journey like after that year?
After that year, I continued touring a bit. Started to feel a little bit burned out from playing so much, and from kind of feeling a little too comfortable with performing and not really excited about anything new I was writing. And that's when I had met my now wife. And she's a chef. I was feeling a little bit stagnant. And so we decided to just make the decision to plan a year-long world trip. So we sold all of our belongings. I told my band that I was just taking like an emotional and mental break from performing and that I needed some time for myself. And we traveled abroad for a year. And that was kind of the second craziest decision I had ever made. It was really, really, really scary. But right when that decision was made was right when like my tipping point started to happen the first time, which was when you mentioned my project, Midnight Riot, kind of took off in the advertising and TV and film world. And yeah, it was interesting how that all kind of happened. But that was right after that first like year and a half, 2 years that we decided to go and travel and see the world.
So things were going pretty well in the music world for you. You meet this woman named Robin. I think I read you were dating 6 months, and you look at each other and you say, we only get one chance. Let's ditch all of our belongings and go around the world. I mean, to most people, not to me, I think that's awesome, but most people would be like, this is crazy. What was the driving factor that was in both of your hearts to go and start this backpacking babes adventure?
So I think it just came from a place of us having talked about it so much. It was one of the first things we had bonded over when we met, loving to travel, wanting to see the world. And me at the time feeling like I was just very one-dimensional and feeling like there was more to life than this music thing that I was chasing, and I needed to find more meaning. And it kind of goes against everything I had just done, right? I had just sacrificed all of my comfort and kind of had been feeling super excited about my pursuits, but also dealing with all this insecurity. And I was sacrificing so much to pursue a music career. And then I sort of drop it for a minute to take a year-long sabbatical. So I felt obviously a little bit conflicted at first, but ultimately we did say there really is so much more to life than like a job, which for her was a really, really great chef gig. And a year in the grand scheme of what our life is going to be is just like a drop in the bucket. And what it could potentially give to us is something that just like cannot truly be measured. So, I mean, she made a pros and cons list. I made a pros and cons list, cons. We've only been together for 6 months. This could be terrible. Pros, like we come back super enriched and enlightened and with like a whole new set of values and beliefs and eyes wide open. And cons, we break up on the trip. People think we're losers. We don't have money to get back. All these, and we ultimately just decided that it was something that we both as individuals wanted to do. And it was something that we thought could be really special to share together and to just take the chance because like we truly had nothing to lose.
I think there's a couple important lessons here. And the first is that you can't plan too much of your life because you never know who you're going to meet. And when you meet that person, you never know what kind of plan you're going to make together. And I think the other lesson here that people might not get from your story that I fully understand is that it's really, really strange when your lifelong passion becomes your job and becomes your moneymaker and becomes your chase. You get burned out, you get depressed, you get all of these things mentally where, even though you've become successful at a career that's really hard and different and unique, you have to take a break. You have to step away so that eventually later on you can continue. So I completely get why you made this decision, even though things were going great with you musically. But when you did take that sabbatical with Robin, did you still do things for music? Did you still write? Did you still perform? Did you still work with Midnight Riot?
Yeah, so the plan was to just try and play music, for pure like fun and fulfillment and not have like a rigorous schedule and not worry about work so much. And we had saved up enough to sort of make that happen. We did a lot of volunteering. And so wherever we were and we knew where we were going to be, I tried to figure out the venues in town and what was going on and try to just enjoy playing music for fun, meet other people that played music. When we were in Auckland, New Zealand, I played their Auckland Pride Festival, which was really amazing. I played a ton of music in Thailand. I played a ton of music in Vietnam. We lived in each of these places for a month to 2 months each. So it was really, really great. And Midnight Riot and I, Midnight Riot being me and my musical partner, Justin, we had released a song right before I left for this trip, not really thinking anything of it. And so here we are, we're in like New Zealand. It's like the very beginning of our backpacking trip. And JetBlue and Fitbit stumbled upon our song and ended up using it in their ad campaigns. And so basically throughout our whole trip, I had to kind of continue being like on email and writing things, and things sort of like took off in this really organic way when I kind of stepped away and stopped forcing it. So I definitely kept working. And then it was great because as far as playing music, I was doing it from a place of where it always should be, which was just like, because I love it and not because I'm stressed about needing to pay rent or because I need to keep a band employed. It was really nice. It was like definitely the break that I think a lot of us need.
Again, this is exactly how the universe works. You push, you push, you walk away, and all of that hard work suddenly bounces back and hits you the second you step away. So sometimes I think people have to do that. And when you got that email or that phone call that JetBlue and Fitbit were going to use your song, what went through your head during that moment?
I mean, first you're excited, and then you're laughing about the exact thing you just spoke about, because the irony is just ridiculous. Like it's truly like the book, like the tipping point. And everyone has a bunch of different tipping points that are going to happen through their lives. And this was definitely one of them. And it's just funny, like the irony of that, when you kind of stop forcing things and you step away for a second and you're able to see all the lanes, and maybe your view wasn't in the right lane. Like maybe you weren't paying attention to all the adjacent possibilities. Yeah, it was wild. And we actually, I flew back to the States for a month to work on some more music. And then we went back out for our last couple months of the trip. So, it kind of kickstarted everything. And our trip basically, came to an end because we just felt like we wanted to kind of have a home base now. And we felt so fulfilled, and work for me started to get really crazy. So yeah, we decided to come to Nashville. And so that's where we're at now. But, yeah, it is wild how that happens.
I like to be realistic about these kind of things. And, my boyfriend and I did something similar. We, in August, sold 90% of our belongings, and we've been living in a new city every single month. And people always ask us, well, how do you afford to do this? And I don't like that question because everyone's different, but A, I always say, well, we both still work, and B, there's really inexpensive living options that people don't realize. So, really quick, tell us how you both made this work.
Yeah, we always get asked that. I feel your internal pain a little bit. But we were super resourceful because we don't have trust funds. We don't have wealthy families who supported us through this. So they emotionally supported us, though. So there are a lot of different resources that people who do want to travel can utilize. There's an organization called WWOOFing, and it's working on organic. It's like organic farm work, basically. And so you can work on a vineyard, you can work on someone's like private farm. It exists all over the world. And you make a profile, and it connects hosts with different travelers, and the hosts basically get free workers, and they also can have this amazing cultural exchange. And then the workers get to have an amazing cultural exchange, stay somewhere for free. All you have to pay is your airfare, and a lot of the times all of your food is covered. And you work, 5 hours a day or something like that. So there's WWOOFing. There's another one called HelpX, which is not limited to farm work. There is Workaway, which is another website, and it's also not limited to farm work. So we did 3 work exchanges. So we didn't work in every country. We worked, for a couple weeks out of our 2 months in New Zealand. Robin was a chef in Vietnam when we lived in Hanoi. And then in Argentina, we worked at a brewery, and I did graphic design and video editing and like branding for them. And Robin helped on the brewery side of it and in the kitchen. So yeah, you just kind of use your skill set or anything that you are remotely interested in to get along and figure it out, because there's definitely a way, and you don't have to have a ton of money to make it happen, as long as you're willing to, be alternative about it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because a lot of people don't take risks or leaps like this because they think, well, I don't have all this money. I don't, how am I going to pay for this? But there are ways you can work, you can have fun with it, you can think outside the box. So thank you for being honest about your journey. What advice would you have for people who want to do something similar, whether it's in music or any other creative alternative field where you can't really major in it, but you have to really rely on your talent and your dedication for that career path?
Yeah. I mean, as far as anyone who wants to do music or start anything, or anyone who just has that kind of entrepreneurial bug, I just think it's so important to really not compare and really just try to maintain your own happiness and only pursue the things that you feel are going to make you happy. And I think comparison is the death of all things because it's only going to bring you down, because it's unrealistic. And I think that when you do start something, you need to realize that it might happen in a year. I don't know. For some people it does. It might happen in 5 years. There's really no blueprint for this, like at all. Like you were saying, there's no major for it. You can't go to grad school for it. Some people it takes 10 years, 15 years for whatever it is that they're pursuing to come to fruition. And so you have to, and you have to be realistic and say, like, are these things that I'm willing to sacrifice? Like some people are not willing to sacrifice their home life, and so they don't want to tour. Or some people say, you know what, like, this is really important to me. Having a comfortable home living situation is more important to me. And that's totally okay. And I think it's just being, realistic with yourself about where you're at, but realizing that there's no answer. I get asked all the time, and there's so many people that I want to ask questions to that are kind of at a different chapter in their career. And then there are people who talk to me and ask me questions. But there's I don't have the answers, just like you don't have the answers. Just like, I don't even think Gary Vee really has the answers. He has his answers, but everyone's trajectory it couldn't be more different. And there's no blueprint. And I think that's the best. Once you can wrap your head around that and realize that there's no rule book, that's the only way you'll find some sort of peace in pursuing your own path.
Amen to that. That was so wonderful.
Yeah.
Going to do a quick lightning fire round with you. So just going to ask you a couple of questions and feel free to respond with whatever you want.
All right, let's do this.
When you were a kid, what did you want to grow up to become?
A singer.
What's your dream job now?
To be doing exactly what I'm doing / be a mom.
I love it. I love it. What advice would you give to Emily at age 22 when you graduated from college?
Everything's going to be just fine.
What advice would you give yourself now that you wish you would actually listen to?
Don't feed into the stories you tell yourself. Otherwise, you're going to have anxiety.
What's the best advice anyone has ever given you?
Don't feed into the stories you tell yourself. Otherwise, you're going to have anxiety. Everything's going to be okay.
What's the number one thing you feel an urgent desire to accomplish this year?
That's a tough one. Travel to India.
Is that going to happen, you think? That's awesome.
I think so. If we can find the time, that would be amazing.
Yes. Tell us about your number one moment of failure and how you kept pushing forward.
There are so many, Jen. I've overdrawn my account in college so many times. My car broke down so many times. There have been so many failures, too many to count.
Do me a favor. Fill in the blank. You're not getting any younger, so
do whatever you want to do. Literally, nothing else matters. Be happy and make people happy, and do what makes you happy. Do whatever you want to do. Other jobs are always going to be there. It's all going to be there. Your car is going to be there. It's all going to be there. You can always get another job. Go do what you want to do, because you're literally, it's so true. You are not getting any younger. Time is your most precious asset. And go do it, because it doesn't matter what anybody thinks. It literally does not matter.
I love it. Thank you so much, Emily. I have a request from my boyfriend, which is to please go on tour, because he asked me yesterday, right after the first video we watched of you, when we can see you live. And I hope that's soon. But please tell our listeners where they can check you out, where they can support you, and where they can learn more about you.
Yeah, well, you guys can go to my website, emilykoppmusic.com, and I'm on Instagram at emilykoppmusic. My moniker, my other alias is Midnight Riot, and we're on Twitter and we're on Instagram and all that stuff and all the social media things. But yeah, Jen, you guys are in LA right now, right?
We are. Tell me you're going to be here performing, please.
I would love to. I'm definitely going to come in a few months for probably a week or two of writing. So I will let you know when I'm there.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Emily, for being on the show. We will post all of these links on our website, anyyounger.com. I got to go listen to more Emily Kopp, and you should too. We wish you so much luck, and we will always be cheering you on. Thank you so much again, Emily.
Thank you, Jen.
Hey, you. Thank you for listening to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. There are hundreds of thousands of pods out there, so thank you for listening to this one. You can find the show notes for this week's episode up on our website, anyyounger.com. Subscribe, rate, and review the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast on iTunes so that other ears around the world can listen too. Oh, and join our secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group, where over 1,000 people are talking about how to disrupt their lives, for a good reason, to make it count. Until next week, all my love, Jen Glantz.